Are you still using someone else's definition of success? Or have you created one that actually fits your life? Because I think that's where alignment begins. It's not about changing jobs, not about changing companies, not about a new title or a new promotion, but having the courage to define success for the season that you are living. So, what is it today that fits your life so you get it right for the season that you are living today?
Welcome at the Aligned Ambitious podcast, where today I sit down together with Michele. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today with Michele because we've met on the internet, but for some reason our paths keep on crossing with each other. And Michele and I recently sat together, and I would love for all of you listeners to experience her story and her recent transition as well, because Michele is in quite a transition at the moment and has quite a view on where we have to go as aligned, ambitious society in work and for our own personal life and our family. And I cannot wait for all of you to experience that story as well. So, Michele, first of all, very welcome.
Thank you, Flor.
And maybe before we dive into all of these important topics, Michele, you can start by explaining yourself a little bit of your corporate career and now your transition, shortly about your transition, about the entrepreneurial journey, because we're going to talk way more about it in a bit, but so that people get an impression of who you are.
Oh, that's great. And thank you so much for having me on. And can I first say that I am so excited, Flor, about what you're doing with Aligned Ambitious and the work you're going to be doing. And I'm honored to be joining here today and with you in this journey that you are taking. It's so exciting. So
Thanks.
I want to share this about my career and my background, because I've been around in the food industry for more than 30 years. And I describe my career this way, that it falls into three chapters. And the first chapter was really about learning consumers in consumer packaged goods, where I worked in Nestle and Ralston Purina, learning about brands and understanding why people choose products and how businesses create value. And then in chapter 2, I spent almost 20 years leading large global ingredient businesses at Solae and DuPont Nutrition and Health, running multi-billion-dollar businesses, global teams, and large transformations. That's when I became an executive in the C-suite. And most people probably assume that was like this big destination for me to become this big executive. But during that time, Flor, I really discovered that I loved building businesses and growing, products and growing things more than I loved maintaining and doing things that were incremental. And so that's that time that I left, big blue chips, and left the corporate world and went into the startup world, that was my chapter 3 in my career. And that probably surprised a lot of people, because I think a lot of people thought that I was driven by big titles and positions and that prestige of blue chip companies. That prestige that blue chips provide you. And I just found that I thrived on closeness to customers and the market and the creation of technology, which is why I went into startups. And you asked earlier when you were doing the intro about this kind of what I'm doing now and this change. And so it's really the fourth chapter, kind of the end. Like the end of my career.
Well, let's see. Maybe there's a fifth chapter coming up, right? You never know.
Yeah, you never know, but I'm in this final stage, this fourth chapter, and it's, as you said, it's more this entrepreneurial, but I've always kind of had this real entrepreneurial spirit within me, and it's really it's doing something that I'm giving back, and it's also driven to like I'm becoming a grandmother. My oldest child, my daughter, she's 31 years old. She's having her first child, and watching her, this young woman, having her career now, it has sparked me and all these young women in our industry, the things that they're going through as a woman developing their career. A lot of things haven't changed since I started, back in the 80s. And I want to help women and help them. And it's time for me to give back, and to give back to my daughter as well. And so I want to help founders, help women who want to become executives or be their own entrepreneur, help them find themselves to get to what they want to be and this find the success that they want. Help women navigate the same leadership transitions that I've lived myself. So, looking back on my own career, every one of those chapters that I just described required a completely different version of success. And that's the thing that I want to help women now find for themselves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful summary already of your own story, Michelle, and also a beautiful mission to have. And I think it's going to be really interesting for the listeners to understand a bit how, in each of those chapters, you defined success and why you made those
Mm-hmm.
pivots over time. So maybe let's start with like you were this young lady going into business. What was like chapter one, the success you you wanted to have back then when
Yeah.
you entered corporate?
Yeah. So the way I think about that is like I didn't define success. Like success was defined for me, or I inherited it. Cuz the only role back then, the only role model for me for success was my father. That's who I looked at. And then once I started working, it was externally defined for me. So I looked at other people. It wasn't here, it was externally defined. So I looked at titles, I looked at promotions, I looked at money, and that's how I was defining it. And people told me, well, you need to get the next promotion as fast as possible. And don't you want more money? So everything was like these milestones of get another promotion, get another title, get more money. And the bigger the raise, the better it is. And make sure you get recognition. So get, publicly recognized, and make sure you get that recognition, like whether it's in a back then it was memos, and then it became an email, get somebody, to recognize you. And then I got told you could get to the C suite, you could become an executive. So I started chasing, a VP title, an executive director. And so Flora, was doing what other successful people did. And
Yeah, all from the
I was like on a
external perspective. Yeah.
it exactly, because when you're young, we borrow other people's definition of success because we haven't created our own definition of success yet. And I don't want you to get me wrong, those things brought glory, and I liked all that glory. I liked all that recognition. But Floor, eventually, however, it didn't quite sit right with me. So like in my 20s, and even in my early 30s, I liked that, but there was like this like arc of time in this period where it started like wasn't sitting right with me, and it became more of a chase after those metrics of somebody else's definition instead of my satisfaction or my personal fulfillment. And And it was like this level of discomfort or dissatisfaction, but I couldn't quite name it or put my finger on it. But it was this like rumbling that didn't feel
Feeling.
quite right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was also a moment, I think, then where you went from like rational things you could like measure to something's feeling maybe not right here, but I can't put my finger on it because I can't measure it
Right.
or I can't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And then how did you then get to like, was this still in the time where you were just about to become an executive, or where exactly did this happen with like chapter two? And
Yeah.
yeah, how did you get closer to
Exactly.
unraveling this feeling? What did you do? Or what
Right.
happened maybe?
So I'm in a, yeah, and it really started coming in that chapter two. And it was during that time when I had children. So I didn't have my children until I was in my mid 30s. And it was a purposeful decision for me to have children. And I think for me, children became a way that I started to discover myself as well. Don't ask me why children did that for me, but they did. Instead of like letting other people measure me, it children brought me inward. It forced me to. And I'm gonna describe that turning point, Flora, this way. Like life started whispering to me. And you know how that I was describing that, like that mismatch of external measurement and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't listening here to my heart. Life started whispering to me, and the whispers became louder and louder. And so that I was in that place where I was this rising executive, and I was at the executive level. I was getting told, you're going to become the CEO. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing this. And I was raising two children as a single mom. And so I was in this place where it was like I was trying to do everything and I was being everywhere. So I was this executive running a huge global team and reporting into, I had a lot of responsibility to the CEO of DuPont Nutrition and Health. And I was on nonprofit boards. And I had lots of friends. I had my college friends, my high school friends, my neighborhood friends. And I was on the parent teacher organization, at my children's school, because this is all the things that you're supposed to do. So you can imagine this life running at all ends, at all places, and trying to serve a lot of masters.
And a lot of
And
people except for yourself.
yeah,
I already get
yeah,
overwhelmed if I hear how much was on your plate.
yeah.
Yeah.
But and I'm the kind of person who's really good though at all those things, but I wasn't serving anyone well. And I'm going to tell you a story where things became really clear to me that this was just not working at all. So I'm in this meeting. It's like a 4 or 5 hour meeting because the business that I'm running. Now, remember, I'm like incredibly successful at this point, but I've got a business that just had a really bad quarter after like we're flying and doing really well. I have a responsibility to the CEO of DuPont Nutrition and Health. I mean, of DuPont, not just Nutrition Health, of DuPont, this $40 billion company, where I've got to go in the next couple of weeks and explain to this person, like, why we're about to also deliver another forecast of down business. And so I've got my executive team in, and we've been pounding for hours and hours to figure out what's going on, and we've got to deliver information out. And I get this buzzing text. Imagine all caps, where are you? And I drop my phone, realize I'm late picking up my daughter from school for her cardiologist appointment, because I had been dealing for a few years my daughter who has a heart problem. And I literally just turned to everyone in the room and I'm like, I got to go. And I just run out. because I'm late picking up my daughter. I am racing in my car to my daughter's school. I get stopped by a police officer. I get a speeding ticket, which of course makes me later picking up my daughter. I pull into the rounded driveway where the dean of the school is sitting with my daughter. Literally throw my daughter into the car. We race to the cardiologist's office. I get a second speeding ticket on the way to the cardiologist. My poor daughter is in tears because she is convinced we are going to miss the appointment. I'm trying to calm her down as I get to the cardiologist's office. Just like, and I'm just screeching in. Can you just imagine this scene as she's, in tears? I'm you know, it's like Fast and Furious wheeling into the cardiologist's office. Now, fortunately, we make it because the cardiologist is an hour late. So, no
Luck on
problem.
your
We're
side.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, everything is all fine. Now, I take my daughter to ice cream after the cardiologist appointment because I owe her a major apology. This is no way to be a parent. It's also no way to treat my team that at the office had been doing all of this work that I owe to them to lead them out of a bad quarter. No way to gather information to present with confidence to the CEO of a $40 billion company. No way to present myself to the dean of my daughter's school. No way to demonstrate, like racing in front of my daughter getting speeding tickets. Like no way to show up to anybody, nor to myself. My daughter and I have a tremendous laugh about the whole thing. As I'm at home with my son and my daughter that night, I just say to them, I apologize. I need to do work because I'm going to do things. I've got to figure out how to do things differently. The same way and the same approach as I go the next day to my team. I have some work I have to do because I'm going to do things differently. And that's what's going to lead into the discussion that we're going to have later about what did I do differently. But what I want to share here is that it's not the day where everything changed because there's no magic that turns things on a dime. But what did change floor for me, what it was the day there that I started asking different questions about my life, myself, and what I wanted success to look like for me and what I wanted my life to look like for me. And that's the approach I took, was I started asking different questions.
Yeah, and this was basically the realization point or your aha moment where you realized this can no longer
Mm-hmm,
continue this
mm-hmm,
way. Thanks
mm-hmm.
also for sharing that story so openly, Michelle, because a lot of people don't share those kind of stories out there. What was the age of your kids at that time, just out of curiosity?
Molly was about 11 years old at that time, about 10 or 11.
So you survived for a pretty long time in that operating mode. Single
Mm-hmm,
mom, with your kids, all the balls keeping up in the air. And then
mm-hmm.
came this point where you needed time to get your things in a new way together. What, maybe the start of your aligned ambitious journey, maybe not. I'm curious, would you say it was or not?
It really was. It became a big change for me. Yes. And that was the journey that shifted the alignment for me. And I'm going to talk here about a framework that I created. And it didn't come at that singular moment, but this is when things really changed for me.
Okay,
And
talk us through.
I
I am keen to
created
hear it.
yeah, I created, and what came out of that process that I went through, because that's when things really changed. And I created a framework that now, since that time and that change, has become the way I manage my seasons of life. And it's what I'm using now that is bringing me into this new chapter and new season in my life. And and
So actually,
I
Michelle, sorry to
stopped.
interrupt you here, but
No,
so
please
you've built
do.
this between chapter 2 and 3. So it led you into chapter
Yes,
3, and it's again the same framework is again helping you into chapter 4 now as well. Oh,
exactly.
I loved it. Then
Exactly.
it's time
And
that we
thank
hear
you.
all
And
about
thank
this
you.
framework.
Yeah. And thank you for articulating it that way. But it took a lot of work in that moment of chapter 2. And it changed, and that in this framework changed how I view, how I define what I want in success in life. And so, and the framework came from work with, I I was already in some therapy. I was in conversations and dialogue with close friends of mine, girlfriends, and with mentors. And they were female mentors as well. Mentors, colleagues through work that I had, different jobs that I had had and things like that. And so what I how I got there is that I stopped asking, how do I balance everything in my life? And I started asking, what is the season that I'm in? Because the season of your life that you're in is important to understand. Because every season that you're in asks something different of us. Because the mistake is expecting one definition of success fits every season of life. Because the season I was in there at that point was I was an executive that was raising 2 children. Because Flora, the season you're in is different now than the season I'm in at this point
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah, it requires
So
different
I
inputs, and thus it
exactly
also give different
it,
outputs because that's the different output you're looking for.
exactly. So define that season that you're in, and then what you define and what I define for me is the values. What are the personal values that are critical for me at this season that I'm in? So then, number 3, I can get clear on the choices I need to make for the values that are critical for me at this season of my life. And when I'm clear on the choices, I can gain alignment. And so, what I'd like to share with you is what was important to me on the values at that moment in my life. And let's go back to that craziness I had going on. I had these children that I was raising. I had an executive level where I was being told, Michelle, you could become CEO of this company. You could become CEO of some other company, of a Fortune 500, Fortune 250, if you wanted to. And so I had to do a lot of purposeful work to understand what were my values. Did I want to become a CEO? Did I want to make a ton of money? What kind of work did I want? How much money did I want to make? What did I want to do about my children? What was important in all of that? Did I want to have like all of this, like social life? Because I'm a gregarious person. I love being around all of my friends and running all over the world because I was taking skiing trips with girlfriends and all of that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of work. And it didn't take a week or two, it took a lot of time to figure that out. And so I realized through that work, I had 2 non negotiables for me. I wanted meaningful work. And that meant for me at that point in time where the work I did was valued and I had impact on the people that I worked with. And I wanted to raise healthy, happy children who became incredibly productive adults that could live the lives they wanted. And once I knew that, every other decision became easy for me. And so, what that meant for me, my choices were I gave up board seats, I gave up social expectations, I even gave up for career decisions, like not chasing a CEO role. But what they meant is I made choices. I chose meaning in my job, meaning in my work that I did, and I chose impact on my children and their lives, impact on my work. And so what that meant around then the alignment is that it didn't make my life easier, but it made my decisions easier. And that's what I got clear on. So when I made the decisions, like when I made a choice that I said to my college girlfriends, I'm not going on that ski trip this year because I need to be here for my children. I didn't love it, but it made the choice easier because I was aligned on my values. And when I made a choice on not doing something in my career because I was aligned on my decisions, but I still had ambition, but it was a different ambition.
And how did that decision make you feel, Michelle? Once you decided that, you said it took quite some time, but what did it give to you?
Power. I felt empowered. And I was also relaxed.
Yeah, I can imagine it gives a certain calmness because you're very clear
Mm-hmm.
and intentional where you will go and not go. So it gives some kind of rest or like, yeah, calmness, I think, on all the other things and expectations you can get
Mm-hmm.
let go of.
Mm-hmm. And my children were calm. And people at work saw a different me. Instead of that urgency all the time, it it just was a calming thing. And the other thing too is I knew like the things that I gave up, the choices were more powerful than what I gave up. I could always make friends and go and have a social life later when my children left, but the time I spent with my children was so enriching. And it was, and also the career choices, I still had a career that I absolutely loved. And the impact I had gave me so much satisfaction. So every choice was worth the choice.
And I imagine with your comment just right now on how it came across to your team also actually positively impacted your ambition to
Mhm.
impact people you work with. Because you were a calmer, more
Absolutely.
present leader, so you could have more positive impact, more time perhaps with your team to help them grow and have together the impact that you desired.
Absolutely. I hope so. I think so.
Yeah. That's maybe I love this story a lot. And I have one final question on this particular part, and that is you said it took a lot of time. What made it that it took a lot of time? Was it because you didn't spend that much time before for years on this topic, or was it hard to get closer to what you truly wanted because you never really listened to it, or what made it that it took a lot of time?
Flora, that is a great question. I think there were a couple of things. I think you said it exactly right, that I didn't take the time to listen to me because I was living externally to what other people told me the definition of success was. I didn't listen to my heart. And secondly, I didn't listen to the needs of others around me as well. I didn't, since I had these children in my life, I didn't listen to what they needed. So as a parent, I had a responsibility and I needed to put that in front of me first. And secondly, I needed to do the job as well. If I chose to be an executive leader, I needed to put needed to make the decision to put that in front of me as well. So what is that balance? Do I want to be a CEO and make that climb? Or do I want to be the leader that puts the people in front of me first? And I was constantly trying to balance that. And so how do I do that and be the best that I can be? And I'll go back to that time when I was in my late 20s and early 30s, and it's like you're trying to be successful. And so I'm driven by promotions and titles and the business and winning versus doing it through your team. And this is one of the things I'm working on as being a mentor and a coach, and shifting from a performer to a powerful leader and a leader of people. And that's putting your team first. And it was one of the shifts I needed to make as a successful executive. And that was the work I had to do on myself.
You even hear it in your voice where you talk about like the external part. It's very fiery, and then the calmness where you talk about people first, people leader, and yeah, where it's more about the group
Mm-hmm.
instead of the individual. So I hope the listeners
Right,
also hear that carefully.
right,
Now, so
right.
that was a whole journey by itself, Michelle. But then we're still not there yet on your own aligned, ambitious journey because, as you said, your seasons evolved and this was a new phase you went into. And yet again, at some point, a new phase showed up. So,
Yeah.
what happened then, and how did the framework help again?
Oh, thank you again for asking that. So this has been a a recent journey for me. I would say in the last year. And sometimes these journeys, they I guess maybe it's for me. They don't come fast and they don't come easy, because you have to shed where you have been. It's like a new skin.
Yeah, it's like a
And
snake almost.
exactly,
Although that
exactly.
goes a little bit quicker, I think, than with human transitions.
Yes, exactly. I love your analogy, Floor. And so it's been in the last year, I'd say more like 18 months. And I have been in this place in the startups, and I have also at the same time been advising founders and executive teams. I've been in the role of chief commercial officer. I've been president and leaders of startups, and also chief commercial officer, helping other founders and advisors. And so it's a comfortable role for me to do the work. And so to shed that and go and step out of everyday work doing that is different for me. And stepping in more of a role of not this everyday work, and being more of my own entrepreneur, like a solopreneur, and not working with a team is scary. And so that felt like, oh, like everybody in the industry knows me over here, and doing something here is scary. And so I had this deep passion, and I would talk all the time to people that know me, and they would immediately swing me back over here. But they would say to me, "Oh, it's so wonderful that you want to do this." But they would swing me back over here. And so it was really scary getting started on that. But I have, as you mentioned, I have this daughter that she would talk to me as she started. So when she was 23, graduating college, starting her new job, she's coming into work, and she's experiencing some of the things that I experienced when I was young in work. And it's like, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard still for a young woman?
Is that on
And
the
then
external success and external validation, Michelle, or you also talk about like male female relationships in work environment, or
both,
all of it? Okay, yeah.
all of it, all of it. And I'm like, why is it still so hard? And then I'm involved in, I'm on the board, the executive committee of females in food here in the United States. I'm involved. I'm on the executive board at Women in Agribusiness, and 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 all these young women are talking about the same thing. How do I get ahead? It's like it's hard to get recognized. It's hard to find the pathway up. How do I become like where you were as an executive? It's like I find the opportunities difficult. And I'm like, for real? Is it still really that hard? Like, and
Yeah, you're just
I
shocked
find
looking
that
at the same patterns.
I'm so disappointed. And that makes me sad. And so I'm not here to change the system. And I'm not here to fight politics. I'm not here to do any of that. So what I want to do is what I know is that I lived when it was challenging, it was difficult. Most of the time I was the only female in the room. And we had to fight our way through. And as we've talked, it was a challenge to figure out how I could find my way to align myself to my ambition. And every person, whether you're a male or female, needs to find your own definition of success. I want to do that for women, and I want to help you find your pathway to your success in the environment that you're in. And so I'm trying to figure out my own alignment to that solopreneurial role so I can help women do the same. And so that's my journey. And so the journey that I'm creating for myself is like, well, I'm in a new season that's asking me to become a different leader and a different leader for women. So it's a place where success isn't going to be measured by what I build. It's now being measured by what I'm going to leave behind, because I'm calling it my give back period. And so that's my new season. And I'm defining my values now based on how I'm helping the people, or helping. It's by people that I help. So let me articulate this right. By people that I help, by leaders I can develop, and still by founders of startups that I'm going to help them accelerate their business. And so I want to share my experience, my knowledge, my lived wisdom, both my successes and my failures, because I've had both. I've messed up and I've
Obviously.
won. Yeah. So I want to work with women who realize they don't have to follow someone else's playbook. They can create their own pathway. And so let's figure out how you can create alignment with your own ambition. That's what I want to do.
I love it. And it's very much needed, Michelle. And with that, I'm curious, your experience and your coaching clients basically, and the women that you're gonna help are gonna live this on, let's say in 30 years from now. You are maybe still in business, maybe not. Let's see how long you're gonna do this. What do you hope, let's say 30 years from now, when your grandchild is gonna enter the job market, what Aligned Ambitious has realized within the work field for all those other people? How will that world look
Yes,
like for you, ideally?
yes. Yes, and that is right. I have a grandchild coming, and my daughter's due in a few weeks. And I am going to be called Glamma
Oh,
for everyone out there. And I do want to share that I'm doing mentorship, and I have have developed as well a workshop called the Executive Leap. And I'm very excited about that. And that I'd ask people one simple question. The thing I want to leave behind with them is if you to think about the season you're living in today. This is something I talk to my daughter about, and we're talking a lot about because she's confused right now. When you're having your first child, it's like a very confusing time. But that season that you're living in today, are you still using someone else's definition of success? Or have you created one that actually fits your life? Because I think that's where alignment begins. It's not about changing jobs, not about changing companies, not about a new title or a new promotion, but having the courage to define success for the season that you are living. So, what is it today that fits your life so you get it right for the season that you are living today?
I think that's already also a really strong reflection question or statement that the listeners can think about themselves, because usually at the end we ask for a prompt. So, listeners, that was the prompt from Michelle for right now. What is the season you're in and what needs to change to fit with that season? And maybe to go back to your vision, Michelle, I would still love to hear a little bit of like 30 years from now, what has ideally changed in business so that people feel more aligned and ambitious? What is that for you? It can be big, small.
The view, yeah, the view of 30 years from now. So what I hope is that is is that we can see that, like, all of these women and my daughter can see a pathway where they can do the things that they want to do without any limitations, and that they have the freedom to be able to have a family, have children, whether they want to have a spouse or not, they want to have a significant other or not, and they have the ability to have any kind of role that they want, and whether they want to have an executive job or they just want to have a business where they can have a sustainable living, and they have no limitations to the happiness that they want to have. So no pressures from anybody else telling them that you have to wear certain kind of makeup or certain kind of hair or certain kind of clothes, and they can just have joy in doing that job, and no pressures to have multiple roles within that, because there's so much pressure on women to be a mother, a wife, a housekeeper, and keep everybody happy and smiley in all of those roles. And you know what? Just do the job that you love and not have all of those expectations on you. So if you don't want to have children, don't have children and live a wonderful life. If you don't want to be a wife, don't be a wife. Do the construction job. Go be the electrician and climb those, bridges and fix things. If you want to be a CEO, be a CEO. If you want to be a cook, be a cook. And don't live by any other expectations. That's what I want for women. And not have those defined by anybody else. And if you want to be, though, a CEO and raise 3 children, that there's the freedom to be able to do that. and not have it be defined by somebody else's rules.
I think that's a really beautiful vision, and I fully support that. That's why we're here with Aligned Ambitious. And just to note that we wish this for men, for everyone, basically, not just for women. But for
Yes.
women, there are
Yes.
oftentimes still more hurdles with this. So that's why you're emphasizing that. With that, Michele, final question. What is still work in progress for you at the moment in being even more aligned ambitious?
So the work I always do is working on myself. I'm so first, there's two things. I am a constant learner. I'm always learning. I love to learn. And right now I'm an AI learner. I've got so many AI tools. But secondly, I'm always trying to better myself and improve the person that I am, whether it's the work I do or who I am in relationships. So having a daughter who is becoming her own person, her own woman, and now becoming a mother, she is teaching me about how to be a better person in this stage in my life and showing me how to interact with her as she becomes her own very strong, independent woman and giving me feedback on how to do that. So I am learning how to be a better woman at this stage, you know, in my fourth chapter as as a woman who wants to give back to other women. And my daughter's doing a great job showing me how to improve on myself and be a better person.
So, as we hear, there's always more work to be done. You're never done with the journey. That's also life, right?
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Michele, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Indeed, that's what it is, own lived
Thank you.
wisdom with us in a very structured way. I think there are very practical things that listeners can do from this podcast. And for those listening and who want to meet with Michele, Michele is also in the community, joining actually, for example, the support hour that will have taken place already by the time that this goes live. But there will be more support hours where you can join for the Aligned Ambitious community and where you can maybe meet Michele. But we also leave Michele's LinkedIn here in the comments of the show so that you can find and connect with Michele on LinkedIn if you want to. So I really encourage you to connect with Michele if you want to work as a female on becoming a more empowered leader and to be more aligned ambitious. So Michele, thank you so much. And of course, for the
Thank you, Flora.
listeners, I would love to see you in one of the community meetups that we're going to organize, both online and offline. So go to alignedambitious.com where you can find more information on that and see you in one of the meetups. Michele, thanks again so much.
Thank you, Flora. This was fabulous.